What's going on, everybody? Welcome in Car Biz Chronicles. We are here in season 4, episode 4, which is always fun. If you've caught the first 3 episodes, you know we've had some real stars on the show. But today, I'm going to bring you the shining star, someone who has energy and passion for days. I get told a lot that I am full of energy. I'll be honest with you. I haven't met April in person, but I feel like she's probably on par with me or above my energy level, given some of her wonderful posts. So for those of you who don't know her, you should. And those of you who do will love this. April Palmer, how are you today?
I'm so excited to be here. This is like, I feel like a celebrity today. When you reached out to me, I was like, what? Did I make it? Am I famous? And I guess I am, because here I'm sitting.
You certainly are, and I appreciate such wonderful candor about the show. We try hard. We try to have the best of the best on. It's a big thing for us, and you're in that group for sure. You know, famous, I suppose on LinkedIn, a few of us are maybe LinkedIn famous, but that's as far as I go, and thankfully.
I was about to say that's as famous as I'll ever get, but that's okay.
I like my privacy too much to be too famous, I suppose. So April, we're going to start this the same way we start every episode this year, and we're going to intertwine some discussions that I've been having leading up to your show. The question for you to kick us off, as it has been, is what does culture mean to you?
Oh my goodness, this is something I think about every single day, mostly because I've been involved in work and friend and family cultures that were total shit. And then I've been involved in some that are just absolutely amazing. And so for me, I think that culture is the lifeblood of our community, right? So it's having people around us who want to help us tell the story of who we are as people, as individuals, right? And who we are in the group, and to imagine the future together. And it's hard, right? Like people throw this word culture around all the time. And like, it's something that you can just order from Amazon. Like, oh, hey, let's order a dose of culture and inject it into our workplace or our local community. And it's such a dynamic word and concept. I could talk about it all day. Like, it's something that you have to pursue with thoughtfulness and driven by your heart and empathy and a growth mindset, which I think is the hardest thing, right? Because a growth mindset means that you have to be able to look at yourself and your team, and you have to be able to say, okay, we're doing a lot of things right, but we also are doing a lot of things wrong. No matter how hard we try, no matter how many changes we make and how many initiatives we do, there's always work to be done. And there's always something that we can do better. And if we don't have a growth mindset that thinks of those as opportunities for growth or areas where we can improve, and if we're not willing to look at our own blind spots, then we'll never progress to having a culture that is going to be inclusive and diverse and something that's so special that it attracts other people who are going to be working so hard to make the world a better place with us.
I love it. A couple of notes that I've taken from this first part. You're right. It is not something you can buy on Prime. And I like the way that you say that, because I think a lot of people use the word culture and they say to themselves, culture. Sure, I'll walk into my dealership tomorrow and I will demand that there be a new culture. And it's just not how it works. It's not an on-demand feature. It is a feature that takes time. It takes serious energy to figure out who you want to be. I always tell the story, when I started off selling anything, I was selling men's clothing for the Men's Warehouse. Okay, this is back in 1997, run by a guy who was the most incredible CEO I've ever seen or worked with in my life, in George Zimmer, someone who said to you, culture is going to be this way. And if you're not on board, that's the door. And we're fine with it. We're happy to have had you. But if you cannot do what I ask, then you're going to go. And this culture was it was customer first. It was always customer first. You never pointed to someone to say, yeah, what you want is over there or this. It was walk a guest. You never hand a bag over a counter. You walk around a counter. You shake a guest's hand. You hand them a bag. You know, the simplest of things that I don't think enough people understand. The simple things is what makes up larger culture. Would you agree, April, that people put too much stock in trying to use the word culture as opposed to trying to find a way to build it?
Oh my gosh, that's because using the word culture is easy. That's like saying that I go to the gym because I have a gym membership and pay the dues every month, right? But I don't go in and pay my dues if I'm not in there and working out and sweating. And culture is the same thing. Sure, here's the thing about culture. There are a lot of different types of cultures, Sean. Like, think about this. Every workplace has a culture. Some of them are really fucking shitty.
Yeah.
Like, you've got culture, you've got it. Put it on your website. We have culture.
Yep.
Like, we're focused on it. Yeah, but it's shitty. It's the sales organizations that keep the assholes because they're top performers and they make them a lot of revenue and don't realize that if they got rid of that person and took them out of the culture, that it would empower everyone else on the sales team to
April,
be better.
We were just talking about this with Josh Letts this last week. This idea that divas can run your stores or that they can run your businesses is completely a fraud. I am someone who believes that I used to, look, if I knew what I know now at 40, I would have run stores differently in my 20s, okay? But retrospectively helps no one. So all I can do is help people moving forward. I did not run my stores with culture. I ran my stores by data and numbers. That was it. I didn't want to hear about your family. I don't care what's going on outside of work. You have numbers to hit. I have numbers to hit. Let's hit them. And I dehumanized the entire experience. I got rid of feelings, thoughts, and emotions so we could sell cars because that's how I was raised. I was raised in the Chicago car business. I was raised by guys who would tell you that your mom was on the phone so they could go steal your up. I mean, there were things that were happening that you don't really realize. So I really, really like how you say that though, because they might be a top performer, but their removal, albeit scary to your bottom line, initially, I think if you do things right, you'll pick it up. So when we started to do that, we removed a guy who just refused to follow any process. I'm a process guy. I might dehumanize people, but if you don't follow the process, I'm gonna fire you. I don't care how many cars you sell. We have a process. Everyone follows it. You know, if I sell cars this way, you sell cars this way. This is how we sell cars. But it's difficult, April. So what does that conversation look like to you when you realize somewhere in your ranks there is a cancer, but it is a producing cancer? What now?
Well, I mean, so I don't know this. I'm making this analogy up on the fly, right? I've never used this before. So if it falls flat, then fuck it. But it's like ballast, right? On a hot air balloon. So you have all of these ballast, these weights that keep you balanced and different things. And I think of an organization, you have to have exactly the right amount of ballast. But if you've got one that's tilting your ship, tilting your hot air balloon, you got to let it go, right? And as soon as you dump that shit off the side, then everything else rises. And so for me, I think that the detriment to, I think that was a really shitty analogy, by the way. So we can just, like, you can cut it out if you want. You can leave it in. I'm just going to admit it.
April, there's no editing here. Your live analogies go just as far as your planned ones. But no, look, here's the point.
It sounded so good in my head, right?
But see, you got to work through it. Don't worry, we'll get through it. So you have the balance because I've been in a hot air balloon. I took my wife there for her 29th birthday. And it was a weird experience because the thing rises up, but you realize those counterweights, if one was hanging lower, we would be like this, right? And so with all four level, now the only problem we run into with your analogy is we can't cut them. Because we cut them and then all of a sudden we lose that ballast and so we lose the weight. But what we need is all ballast on the same page. They all need to be here because any difference can really throw off a hot air balloon, making things dangerous. So I'm with you. My biggest thing is how long do we give that top producer? Does that top producer get more leeway to get their shit in line to follow our process than say a low producer? Or is the bar the exact same? And that's a real struggle for me, because in the world, some people are just better at jobs than others.
Well, okay, so what about this though? Is yes, I will agree. Some people just have a natural talent for a job. But what I think ends up happening a lot of times in organizations, and I've been in organizations like this, where you have somebody who has a natural ability, they're absolutely amazing, they refuse to follow the process because, hey, like they're meeting their numbers, they're exceeding the numbers, nobody holds them accountable. But a lot of times as well, the organization just lets that person go do those things and doesn't take the time to study what is it that makes that person more effective. Is it that the process that you're asking everyone else to follow and they are following it, is weighing them down?
Yeah.
And so they can't kind of totally embrace that. Maybe you need to look at your process. Maybe you need to look at your leadership. I was just talking to somebody the other day, one of my absolute favorite people on LinkedIn, and I can't name him because he's going through some shit right now, but he's on a team with 5 salespeople. 4 of them are not making their numbers and 1 is. And the 4 who aren't making their numbers are having conversations with leadership about whether or not they belong in this organization and are there pips in play and all of these things, right? To me, and the thing that I told him was, I think you're telling yourself the wrong story. Because the story here is that if leadership has 5 people on their sales team and 4 of them are failing to meet the KPIs because of some reason, that's a leadership problem. That's a process problem. That's a KPI problem. There's something wrong there. If you have a team of 5 and 1 person is failing, that's a different story, right? But like, so I think we oftentimes just let those top performers go, and we forget to try to figure out what is it that makes them so successful and how can we harness that for the rest of the team. That being said, if that top performer is like performing and they're doing the things, but they're an asshat, I don't care how much revenue they bring in, like get them out the door, right? That's a culture. That's for me, like the culture. If you come in and you act like a diva and you kind of flaunt those things and you treat other people like they're less because they don't have the same amount of success as you, get them out the door, because I promise you that everyone else will stop dreading coming to work every day, and they will pick up and they will make up for that kind of gap that person leaves.
Yeah, that's the definition of true culture to me. When you're able to say to yourself, look, both ways, the way that you stated that. So if I've got the 4 guys who are weak and the 1 who is strong, potentially we have a process problem that we need to go investigate with our top guy. I love that. I love the fact that you wouldn't just say, well, I got 4 guys complaining, one guy, about one guy or about one status. At the end of the day, it should be, we have 1 guy who's excelling and 4 who are not. Why is this the case? And if during your discovery you find out it's because he cheats, lies, and steals, then that was an easy move for you to make to get rid of him. Now you know why he's a top performer, whatever. I don't really care. My biggest problem is people who will always look bottom line, right? They will always say, yeah, but Shawnee, if we get rid of this guy, we're going to lose 30 car deals. We're going to lose this. We're going to lose that. The reality is you might lose it in the shortest of terms, right? So next month, maybe we come up a couple units shy, but I'm a data nerd. That's my whole life, is dealing with data. And what happens with data, especially in the marketing way, is if you start marketing in a channel and then you stop, other channels will naturally lift, finding the people who you didn't find through this channel. So there are ways to make this work, but you have to give a shit about it. And what I had Whit Norad on. You might know Whit. Whit's a really awesome gal from Canada. She works with some great people up there in the business. And she mentioned something about the word safety, okay? And having a safe environment for people to feel like they can grow. Now, April, this is not meant to come across as sexist, but as men, for the most part, this has never been a concern I've ever heard uttered out of anyone's mouth ever about where they go to work. Right. However, that does not mean that it is not important as all get out, because we as men do not feel like we have to, are safe or not safe, or it would change us. But talk to me about how safety and what that word sort of means to you from the female perspective, from the employee perspective, because it's important to me, and I think important to others to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, so I I tell the story a lot, and it's something that I'm really open about, but it's kind of a like jaw dropper story. So I'm just going to start there. When I left healthcare and I went into sales, I went out to lunch with a vendor before we went to go see a client, and I walked into the restaurant. It was an Olive Garden, by the way, like super fancy. I walked into the restaurant, and the vendor took my coat and he put something in the pocket, and he was like, "Hey, I put a present in there." And like, I was like, "Yes, I love presents. That's amazing. Like, this is so exciting." And then he holds up a little remote control. He's like, "Why don't you go put it on in the bathroom, and then we can have some fun over lunch." It was a remote control vibrator that he put in my pocket.
Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa,
This was-
whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. So this is when you first met, this is the first meeting of this person, or you
Nope,
already
nope.
known this person?
I
What?
knew him. He was a vendor. I knew him. He was known to me. He was known to everybody I worked with, right? And he put it in my
As
pocket.
this sort of individual?
I'm sorry?
As this sort of individual, when you say known, did you know anything that there were negative connotations about this individual, or everyone just knew who he was because of the job?
I mean, everybody, we all worked with him, right? He was one of our top vendors. He's a super nice guy, right? Like family guy, really just like a normal guy, right? All the guys loved him. They all loved to talk about football, all the things. I show up to lunch, I get a vibrator in my pocket. And so I did what any self-respecting girl would do, which was take the remote control out of his hand and leave with both pieces. But the moral of the story is, because this is what you do. The moral of the
Right, it's the
story
right thing to
is
do.
that I couldn't tell my boss that this happened. I couldn't tell HR that this happened. I was in a primarily male-dominated industry. I was a single mom, and I was really, really worried that a few things would happen. First, I was worried that my boss would ask me what I did to make him think that that was appropriate. Second, I was worried that if it got back to him, that I said something, that it would ruin my relationship with him and with that company, and that I wouldn't be able to get the same type of deals for my clients that I would get, and that I wouldn't be able to win enough business to get the commissions I needed to get to pay my bills. And at the time, Sean, I was a single mom. I was so poor. I mean, like I was so poor that I would go to Walmart and I would buy boxes of ramen noodles and like frozen chicken breasts and frozen vegetables. And the kids and I would eat nothing but ramen noodles for a month so that I could keep the electricity on. I made $47 a year, too much to qualify for any types of financial assistance. I worked my ass off. I worked 20 hours a day. I barely slept. And when this guy did this, the only thing that I could see was if I could lose my job and I could lose my ability to support my kids. And here's the other thing about this, Sean, is I'm not the only, like this was egregious, right? But I'm not the only person who has this story. 87% of women in the workplace say that they have been approached inappropriately or been victims of sexual harassment by primarily men in the workplace.
That sucks. That really sucks. That's that story for you, because people, you feel like people in that position know that story, right, April? So you feel like someone who is a predator in that way, who is a shitbag in that way, they say to themselves, look what we have here. We have a single mother. We know this and that. I'm sure it's not obvious as to your financial situation, but those in the know may know it, right? And so, people we were just talking about this on one of the other shows. We used to leverage people's debt in the car business, right? That's how we knew your ass was motivated. So we'd always tell you, yeah, go get a bigger car payment, go get a bigger house, go have kids, right? Have reasons to work. Guess what? That That ain't right. That is not right. We do not need that. And we do not need people acting this way for you. I mean, April, so you have this concern, right? You can't go here, you can't go there. You have to internalize it, therefore becoming even more of the victim, right? Because then you start to, at some level, I don't know, I would imagine being victim, you start to internally blame yourself or wonder what it is that you did, even though you know you didn't. But April, what happens next? So you sit on this. How long and to what extent does this continue to fester in your life?
Well, so this happened in 2007. I talked about it publicly for the first time in March of this year. So, right, like now, have I talked privately to other women who are in male-dominated industries, which I tend to be in? Like that's a thing. I like to be in male-dominated industries. I like to be, most of the time, what's happening in those industries is really interesting to me, right? Because, I hate to say it, but a lot of times they're slow to change, right? And there's a lot of opportunity for growth. You have people who are really moving and shaking, and like when they decide to flip the industry on its head, like it is a big flip, and it is fun to be involved in those types of things. I like to, you talk about like going and being one of the guys, like I like to hang out and josh around and like watch sports and eat wangs and all of those things. Right. So I tend to put myself in those industries, and I tend to also connect really quickly with other women who are in those industries. And so privately, I've told people that, but this is something that still at 42 years old and, a decade and a half later, when I tell the story, there is a hot second in my brain that I think, was there something that I did to indicate to him that was appropriate? And that's kind of our society. But here, so like, it's a story. It happened. Like, I want people to know that this happens. I want HR people and leaders to know that they need to build a culture where somebody can come to them, a woman can come to them. Because again, 87% of women in the workforce. So if you want to, like, leaders, look at your Slack channel and see who's on it, because I guarantee you that there is one or more human on there that has experienced this and makes decisions every single day about the way that they interact with people in your organization, because they want to avoid that situation again, or because they have some sort of kind of lingering anxiety or PTSD or something about it. You should know that. You should work to actively, make sure that people know that those things aren't going to happen in your workplace. But this isn't just something that happens in 2007. Sean, you want to talk about workplace culture? I consider LinkedIn to be my workplace. I do all of my work on LinkedIn. That's where I connect with everyone. It's where I originate every single sale that I make. It's where I find all of my contracts as a consultant. It's where I found my best friends. Right? Like, I do everything on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn for me is a workplace. About twice a month, I get a picture of some man's genitals in my DMs.
See, now I've talked about this with other people. I don't understand what people's deal is with this kind of nonsense, because first of all, it's not anything people go seeking out. Okay. Like, I don't know where people thought this was a good idea or this was some attractive part of something else. But it's disgusting.
It's disgusting. First of all, none of them are photogenic.
No, none of them.
Louder for those in the back. Your genitals are not photogenic.
Even the most impressive things on earth in that regard, they are not photogenic. They do not photo well. There is never a great angle. And so let's just take that away from it, right? Let's also talk about what kind of disgusting human being do you have to be to think that a woman you don't know or haven't had any sort of involvement with gives a shit enough about you to even look at that or to deal with that. So look, I can't say that I can't put myself in your shoes, April. I don't get DMs like that. Okay, that shit don't happen to me. But I have the same problem with trolls. People always tell me, Sean, the trolls. I don't have any. Now, I don't know if that's because I make it clear that I will slit your throat and leave you laying wherever it is you attack me. I don't know if that's obvious, or if it's more like, you know what, why bother with this guy? Because, you know, he's just going to be an asshole regardless. Whatever it is, I would love to take on all the trolls and dick pics for y'all, because I think it's absurd. And when you throw around a number like 87% of women in the workplace, I'm a data guy, like I told you. So I like to take data and assume everyone's lying by half. Even if I did that to your number, you're still talking about better than 45% of people in a workplace are being hassled for work. That is unacceptable.
I'm going to challenge it the other way and say it's probably actually higher than 87%. Women don't talk about it, right? They're worried about it.
April,
well, here's what I'll tell you about the dick pics, right? Because this goes back, I think, to the vibrator question and to feeling safe at work and culture. And sometimes you have to make your own, right? Like sometimes you have to figure out what your own culture is internally. Like, who am I?
Yes.
I got to the point where I was scared to open my LinkedIn, because it's not like scared, right? Like, I'm not afraid of a picture of a penis, but it's just like, it creeps me out.
That's a level of harassment though, April. It
is harassment, and it's a shitty culture for us to think about on LinkedIn. So I changed the narrative. I was like, I'm taking control. I'm not going to do what I did from 2007 on and not talk about it, not like be ashamed of it, whatever. So what I do, so LinkedIn is super cool. I don't know if you know this or not, but when you add somebody to a DM that's already started with somebody else, they can see the entire conversation that's happened in the past. So it doesn't just start over. If you add them to the conversation, it doesn't just start over. So when somebody sends me a picture of their genitals, I add their CEO or their lead investor to the conversation so that they can see everything that's transpired, including the picture. And then I block the person who sent it. And so part of it is taking control of the narrative. And I kind of want to use that story to pull it back to where we started, which is culture, right? We talk about leaders building a culture and like putting it on their LinkedIn and on their Glassdoor or whatever. But I think a huge part that's missing in building a culture for an organization is putting the power of what the culture looks like in the hands of the employees. And I think that that's a big miss. We miss that a lot.
I agree. And I think safety is that part, April. Yeah. I think the safety in numbers, you're right. The number is higher than 87%, because let's be honest with each other. You are a woman now, as I see you today, of strength and being someone who's not afraid to put it out there. That wasn't the story in 2007, clearly, right? So we're talking about a 14-year gap of you dealing with the self-hate, the whatever, all the negative shit that comes with that, right? Right. Yep. All that you deal with, put it on yourself for 14 years, still while trying to be a mother, still while trying to figure out your bills, still while trying to do all of these things. And now here you are talking about it. I have to ask you, what was your genesis? What said to you, all right, fuck it. Today is the moment we spread this story. What triggered that fire?
I had amazing examples. So when I discovered what LinkedIn really, really means in 2020, I just happened to connect with some of the people who I consider to be incredibly influential in my life and my growth in the last year. Tara Furiani is one of them, Madison Butler, Tara Frank. We have people who are out there unapologetically, not just telling their stories, but also standing up for what it means to be a world community culture that supports supporting everyone, right? And so I was learning and listening, and I was on Tara Furiani's Not the HR Lady show, and we were doing something, and somebody said something, and I was like, this is it. I'm gonna say this out loud. Like, it's coming out, and this is what's happening. But I also, I hit a time in my life in the last year, really in the last year, where have you heard me talk about my fuck it bucket?
I have seen the posts about it. Yes. So go into detail for those that don't know.
Okay. So I have an actual literal bucket in my office that says fuck it bucket across the side of it. And when I am afraid to do something, when I feel like the risk is a nut. Sorry, so sorry, my dog's barking.
Don't you worry about it. We got we all get that.
When a risk or fear is stopping me from doing something that I think is important or that I want to try or will help me grow, I literally write out what the fear is and what the worst case scenario and like what could happen, all the things, because I'm an overthinker. I'm an anxiety, like my anxiety is like sits on my shoulder, right? And I write it out and then I take that piece of paper and I wad it up and I throw it in the fuck it bucket and then I go and I do the thing. Because now I've confronted like, what is the worst case scenario? What's the worst outcome that can possibly happen? And most of the time it's not that bad, right? It's just, so I just toss it in the fuck it bucket and I go. And I think that has been a huge shift for me. I've done a lot of things that hang on.
I think I might have lost you there, April.
Yeah, can you still hear me?
Oh, I can now, yeah.
Okay. I've done a lot of things this year that I normally wouldn't do because I would be afraid of them. I started writing a book. I have applied to do some TED Talks. I was recently involved in an organization. I worked for them for 18 months with the promise of equity, and they fired me and didn't make good on their promises of equity. There is a huge part of me that would like to just walk away from that and be like, you know what, I can just make the money somewhere else, right? Instead, I'm writing a book about it. And I'm talking about it because this is another place that's not safe, right? We have leaders, we have founders who are making promises to people, especially people I would consider to be more vulnerable. So you have single moms like me, people of color, people who don't make a lot of money, and they like you said, like you kind of leverage it, right? As a leader where you're like, oh, well, if you do this extra work, then you'll eventually get this promotion or you'll get this whatever. And it's not a meritocracy, by the way, it's just not. So for me, this year has been all about throwing my fears in the fuck it bucket and doing the things that I think are right, the things that will make the world a better place, the things that will positively impact other people or keep them from having to go through some of the things that I've gone through. Sometimes that means stepping outside of my own experiences and acknowledging that just because I haven't experienced something doesn't mean that it's not true or that it's not really real for people. And then working to eradicate that, even if it doesn't make my life better or benefit me, but it makes the community, whatever it is, the automotive community, my neighborhood, my workplace, a better place. And it makes it safer for them to come in and be able to do the good work that they're doing. And that's really important to me. I feel like that's where my journey is leading me now, which is really exciting. And also like scary as fuck.
Well, yeah, because you're trying to embrace what you believe is your path. And that can be a hard thing to do. When we started our company almost 9 years ago, I was sued by $1 billion company I used to work for a non-compete for $1 million. My company had been live for 3 months. And so my lawyer's first question was, do you have $1 million you're not telling me about? And I said, no, I've told you about what I have and what I don't have and where I stand. He said, well, then let's see what we can do here. And it was about a non-compete, right? I was young / arrogant / didn't give a shit about it because the writing of the actual contract said that I couldn't call any of my previous clients. Well, I had phone records to prove that I didn't call any of them.
But some of them called you, right?
They all called me. Every single one of them that was named as this sort of issue. Then they put out the company I worked for. They put out like a headhunter. They were paying people to find me in dealerships in the market area that they were trying to bar me from.
Oh my God.
They told their employees, if you see them, tell us. They were getting $250 spiffs for finding Sean in the wild, right? Like where's Sean Waldo type shit. And so, so right away, right, you get this lawsuit, you get this certified letter at your front door. Immediately you're like, oh shit. And then the second thought is, wait a second, we're onto something. We are doing, because what would they care? What would $1 billion company care about a single employee? Well, that single employee probably had a goal and a plan, and so they didn't let me fulfill it in my world. I gave them a chance. Look, it was the only corporate job I had outside of the Men's Warehouse. The Men's Warehouse wasn't a corporate job. It never felt that way. This felt like a corporate job, and that shit ain't for me. There is no part of corporations where I belong. First of all, I don't work Fridays. I don't work Tuesdays. I definitely don't go to fucking meetings. And I certainly won't have you tell me when or where I'm going to work or what you're going to pay me. But if that works,
you've got a really good filter, right? Like you're good at workplace politics, Sean.
Yeah, I'm excellent. Look, they're stupid. Get them out. I don't care about anything. I got removed from a national meeting in an OEM's office because the OEM was in a room of 25 people and they were about to tell people the process to sell cars. So all I wanted to do as the small, quiet guy in the room amongst all these big time executives was just take the temperature. Make sure that everyone in the room who was about to tell everyone how to sell cars had sold cars. So I'm like, hey guys, quick show of hands. How many of you work retail? I'm the only one raising my hand out of 25 people, yet I have no opinion on what they're about to say. I shit you not, 2 seconds later, tap on my shoulder, removed from the meeting, never, ever invited back again. They did the same thing. They ambushed us on a call when we got merged with another company. They ambushed us on a call and had a bunch of executives, didn't tell anyone. And they went over the pay bonus structure. And I'm like, guys, I'm sorry. I thought my phone broke up. I swear you could just say my bonus was 2% of my yearly. And they're like, yeah. I go, save it. You clearly need it worse than I. My phone's blowing up. Sean, the CEO, the CFO. I'm like, first of all, you didn't announce yourself. Second of all, I don't give a shit if Barack Obama is on the phone. This is some nonsense. So it does not matter to me who is listening. I will say the same. In April, you seem to be the same person. If you met me on the street, this would be the same conversation we would have. There would be nothing different about our engagement. Yeah. Yet when I meet people from these platforms in person, sometimes it falls really flat. Sometimes it gets really discouraging because you're like, but what about all that stuff you put out there about how you represent and who you are and what's important to you? And so I get a little bit concerned about sort of, the fakery that goes with people, that goes with culture. Okay, I think a lot of cultures can look fun. Let's take Google, for instance, right? Oh my God, we do all this fun shit for people. We have all these different things you can do in our offices that don't relate to work and pods and this and that. Yet, oh my God, we're huge on sexual harassment and we have no culture whatsoever as it really stands. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that I take notice of.
Here's the thing. Culture is not ping pong tables, right? Culture is not a standing desk. Culture is not like a phone pod that you can go sit in. Culture is, I was actually reading an article about a woman, and I have no idea, I can't even remember who she is or what company she worked with, but she got pregnant and she was the CEO. She is the CEO of this company. And the first thing she said was, as soon as I got pregnant, I realized that I had never taken the time as a leader to sit down and think about what are we doing for people within our organization who are about to have children, men or women, right? She goes, I literally have never had that conversation. I was like, yeah, let's do maternity leave. And all of a sudden she started diving into it and she came up with a really awesome program, right? Like you could choose to either take time off or get paid to pay for childcare, depending on what felt right for you. And they would support that. And it was for the men and the women and all these things. But the whole point was not that she came up with this amazing maternity program, as well as, by the way, they did like miscarriage leave and all, like, it was amazing, right? Is what happened then was she sat down and she said, what are all of the other areas within our organization that I haven't thought of because I haven't experienced those things? So I don't have a comprehensive plan for them. That to me is culture. That's where I don't care who's leading the organization. Like I will be the first one to say that, especially in automotive, like we don't have enough women in leadership, but I don't care if you're a man or a woman in leadership. If you sit down and you say, there are people experiencing things that I am not experiencing, and I need to know what those are. And I need to make sure that we have evaluated them. We have policy around them. And I'm hearing what those people are saying so that we can support them the best. That is workplace culture that will crush your competition, because people will come to work for you and they will stay with you and they will be so loyal to you. They'll be raving fans. They'll create all of your new employee acquisition channels for you, right? Because they're going to be out telling everyone you should come work for them. The company I'm working for right now, let me tell you, they pay 100% of healthcare premiums. They have unlimited PTO and they mandate that you take 3 weeks. They have an amazing maternity and paternity program, as well as a miscarriage. But more than that, like, the leaders check in with you on a regular basis and say, are you red, yellow, green? What support do you need from me? Do you need a mental health day? And they also come back and say, hey, I need a mental health day. Or guess what? I'm going to go be a parent. I'm not going to be a silent parent. Like, what is this? We have kids. Everybody, like, all these people, they have kids, and then you're supposed to kind of be silent about them. Like, they disappear after you have them. And so you need to have a culture where it's okay for you to be able to say, like, not just my kid's sick, but hey, my kid's doing a thing and I want to go to it. And they don't just
be there. Yeah, for sure. I think you're absolutely right on the mental health part too. You know, we've been trying to make an effort here on our show to have mental health Mondays as frequently as we can, because I believe it's an important part. I think a lot of people don't see that part of it. And when you talk about building a culture, I'll tell you guys, as we sort of wrap this up, when you build out a culture that's killer, that people want to be a part of, that you create evangelists. So right now, I guarantee you're an evangelist for your company. If you met someone who could fill a role at your company, you'd be like, dude, check this out. This is what we do. This is how we do it. So evangelists, that's how we've grown our company. We've never had a sales team. We've never had any sales organization, nothing like that. Everything is word of mouth. People want to work with us because of the work that we do and the amount that we have. As far as those are clients, working for us is working with us, right? So we only have 4 of us who work here, but we're all partners. We're all staked in the business. So it isn't like someone has something more. Everyone is staked. Everyone has a deadline. Everyone knows what's expected of them. And as long as you hit that deadline, no one gives a shit where you go. And I say that all the time to people. People say, Sean, you're out on Fridays. You're out on Tuesdays, man. When do you work? I work when work needs to be done. That's when I work. Other than that, I'm living my life. Okay. I live my life. My life is a deadline. My client work is due by the 15th of every month. After the 15th, it's kind of my time. Me and my wife, we do what we do. We live our life. That's why I designed the company the way that I did with the people I did it with. So I think a lot of people overreact when they look at things like, maternity. I don't think they put themselves in the shoes. I don't have kids. Okay. It's not a thing. So when parents would talk to me about their issues, it was difficult for me to connect because I didn't understand it. It sounded like an excuse of why you weren't at work. Okay. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah. And this is that moment, right? Like we talked about this a few minutes ago, which is looking at experiences that you've never had and believing that they are true, whether or not you have experienced it. And I think that
your situation, I never been through your situation, but I guarantee it happened to you and it's happened to others. And so we have to, you just because it didn't happen to you doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Like you cannot put your head in the sand and act like we live in some Pollyanna world where it's, candy canes and sugar gumdrops everywhere we look. That's just not how life is.
Yeah. I love it. I love that you're talking about this. I have to tell you that people like you, Sean, especially in the automotive industry, with such a huge voice and so many people listening to you, you're doing really important work. You and your team are absolutely amazing. And the fact that you are talking about these topics and not focus on like, do you have a kiosk in your service drive? Like you have that, right? Like but these are these moments where you are putting this in front of leaders in the automotive industry who are shaping the next generation of leaders in that industry and driving such massive change. Like you all are doing important work. I'm so proud to know you. And I'm so glad to have been on the show with you today, because this is just being involved in whatever you are doing brings me so much joy. You're just a light. So thank you.
I really appreciate it. We'll sort of leave it there as we wrap that up. And I'll tell you that we do this, we talk about all these different topics, and it's because it's life. It's because it's what I truly care about. The car business hasn't changed in 22 years I've been in it. Okay, there's been new technology. We still sell cars to human beings. We're still there for the second, sometimes first biggest purchase of their lives. And my whole part in this whole business, the reason I did not buy a dealership and silo myself to one thing is because my ultimate goal is to leave this business better than I found it. And we will continue to fight for that. We will have more mental health. April, while you give me the credit, I must tell you that the credit truly deserves to be with you. For you to come out and to tell your story, this isn't the first time you've told it, but it feels like the first time because it's the first time I've heard it. And it resonates with me. It's going to sit with me probably for a few weeks. I, in my own self, have history of unfortunate abuse as a kid. And so there are things that you look at and you talk about with people that they're not comfortable talking about. And I realize that. And I talk with a therapist. I'm going to see her in 4 hours. I see her once a month to talk about everything from work to potentially how I'm feeling about things. And I'm trying to find a way in my own life to get out and to help more youth, to help more people, to bring the message. But I have to be extremely careful in how I approach it. Because of the industry I'm in, I started getting into history of what happened to me, when I was younger. There could be negative effects of how people view me. But guess what? The story is going to come out either way. People are going to find out this is what I am, who I am. And to me, that's the most important thing is being honest with people. So April, you do a great job of being honest with people. Please don't change. And do me a favor. Please tag the folks that you mentioned that are in your pod. Make sure that they see it. And if you can, and make any introductions. I would love if you've got more women that have a story to tell about shitty workplaces. This is going to be the place to tell it because we are not going to hide from it. The show is not called Car Biz Done Better. It's called the Car Biz Chronicles for what we're doing here. But my weekly show, 5 Minutes with Sean, that's just meant to be a discussion with anyone about anything that could help humanity. So please, April, keep doing what you're doing. And we really appreciate the time.
Hang on. I have to tell you, first of all, there's a reason why scars are tougher than regular skin, right? There really is. And so, Sean, I know there have been there's a lot of shit in my life that I have done. And I will tell you this is, first of all, though, what happened to you fucking sucks and it's wrong. Also, the fact that you don't let it define you and it is part of you and you embrace it and you look it in the face and you say, because of this and in spite of this, I am this amazing person is absolutely amazing. And also just know there are a lot of people out there who have experienced something similar who take your bravery in talking about it and it makes them feel like they're better able to get through every day and deal with it and talk about it. And I think that we have to normalize that. And so, and in this industry, right there, I don't know how many people are in our industry, but I will tell you this, that statistically, when you tell your story, that other people are sitting there and looking at you and saying, you know what, I don't have to define myself by that anymore. I can go out and I can be me and I can use those scars as a really, really strong foundation to grow and become my whole person. And so I'm sending you so much love on that side and just telling you you're amazing.
I got to tell you, this is because of this discussion that's never come out before. I've never even allowed myself to venture down this, even in a conversation like this. And so for me, it is a big thing. It's a big day because it is a discussion that will come up sooner or later, as soon as I figure out just how to present much like you know what I mean? It's something that I've been dealing with for north of 30 years. And something that is going to take a little bit of design on my end to make sure that I can fulfill the message the way that I think it is. But define me, absolutely not. Drive me all day long. Every single thing that's ever happened to me, whether it's a lawsuit, whether it's losing friends, way too soon, whatever it is, they're all drivers. I try to never get anchored down. So April, thank you again for being an amazing human being above all else. And we really appreciate it. Folks, if you're looking for April Palmer, if you haven't heard it already today, you can find her all over LinkedIn, okay? Message her. Do not send her dick pics. If you message her with a dick pic after the show, she's going to put me on the chain, and then I'm going to publicly put it on my fucking podcast, and I'm going to show everyone. I don't give a shit who's going to sue me, how ridiculously sick and twisted you people are. Thank you, April, so much. Everyone, have yourselves a wonderful week. And next week, episode 5, we're going back to the retail side with an absolute digital marketing star. Thank you so much. Have a great week.